Welcome back to the Creative Changemaker. I feel like it's been a minute since I last propped this up to hit record, and I'm going to explain why it's been so long because that kind of relates to what I'm talking about right now. So, I've been marathon training. I've been in the middle of no, I'm not in the middle of it, actually. I'm close to the end, y'all. I have the race in about 2.5 weeks, which means that this week is my final long run before I taper off and get ready for the real thing. I used to say long run meaning like a 7-mile run. I now say long run and mean like 20 miles. It's wild to me that I am running that much, but I'm also looking forward to not having to do that every week and getting so many hours of my life back. Running a marathon, both the actual race itself as well as training for one and keeping up with the schedule of keeping your body in shape and all that, is a feat of endurance. And I wanted to riff on the topic of endurance because so much of what applies to physical endurance also applies to the kind of endurance that it takes for creative change making. You know, doing creative work takes endurance. You see a lot of artists come out hot and then fizzle out just because they haven't figured out how to make their work something they can grow with, something that can evolve with them. You see a lot of change makers fizzle out because it's so easy to feel intensely about a cause, to pour that energy into something, to get discouraged by a setback, and to not figure out how to recover from that. And I'm gonna share some things, and I think, I realized while I'm running that I would do so many things to just keep my mind off the fact that I'm running so many miles and my body's in pain and I don't wanna think about it, and that's when it occurred to me that all that reframing, all that stuff I'm telling myself during a long run is creativity, right? There's this part of my brain that's being really creative to just figure out how to shift my mind into some other gear in order to get that done. And so, lessons for creative change making that come from the world of running. All right, number one, I'm gonna start with the one I just mentioned basically, which is reframing stuff is so powerful, right? And the same is true with creativity. If you can reorient yourself around the why of what you're doing, it'll change things. Now what's funny is you might need to reorient yourself like several different ways. For example, if you are getting frustrated by not seeing the results that you want, you wanna tell stories and change people's opinions about a certain population, let's just say about refugees and migrants, and you feel like you're doing this stuff and you're still having the same conversations you've been having for years and years. What if you just learned how to fall back in love with the process, with the craft of storytelling, and realizing that, like, yeah, you hope that this moves the needle, but you also just love sitting down to do the work, On the flip side, what if you've been sitting down to do the work again and again, and you feel like you're losing steam? Maybe go back to the thing that, initially made you want to work on this, right? Go back to the anger you felt when you discovered a problem in the world. Go back to the surprise you felt when you connected with somebody. Reminding yourself of that why. So there's so many different directions in which you can reframe what you're doing. I do this all the time with running. When I'm in the middle of, the long run, when I'm at mile 9, 10, I just really don't want to think of how my body feels and how much more there is to go. I might throw on some club music from the mid 2000s and suddenly that's the space my brain's at, I might tell myself stuff like, all right, even though it's a 20-mile run, at least a mile from now, I'm hitting the half marathon benchmark, and that was something that used to be the goal that I strive for, and I can celebrate crossing that. And then when I hit that, I could say well, if I could do that, I could finish another lap around this lake, If I ran 10 miles, could do that again. I think I can at least run the next one, and so figuring out how to mentally chop up what's ahead of you and move your mind around can really help you stay in the long haul. All right, number 2, rest on purpose. In the words of an old mentor, rest is only ever real if it's intentional. So I'm a huge baseball fan, right? And there's this big difference in the way pitchers play the game now versus when I was growing up. I think an old school pitcher would be like, okay, you guys are weak sauce. You don't have the stamina that we used to. First of all, the pitchers today are throwing harder than people have ever thrown. they're getting injured at a higher rate. It's not so much that they're weak sauce, it's that they are more willing to look at the numbers, look at the data, and discover trends. Like, guys typically do a lot worse when they face the same batter for the third time in a game. And the pitchers are more willing to like roll with this data because they're not distracted by the vanity metric of trying to go deep. It's great to have a competitive mindset that helps you win, but like, why am I going on this rant about pitchers? Well, pitchers basically realize the importance of keeping their body in the top condition when they perform, you know? So when they're not pitching, even that is a deliberate act to rest. To not be lazy, but to rest so that their body is ready for the right moment, so it can be locked in when it is their time. Yeah, I've just become more aware of all the variables that go into like how I feel after a run, how fast I'm able to run, and I'm noticing more variables than I ever have before, like things like protein and salt intake, and a huge one that I used to not think about a whole lot is sleep. So, not just thinking of rest as something that like happens when you're worked, but like something you can do proactively to get ahead of the game makes a big deal for running, for creative work, for change making, for advocacy, for all kinds of stuff. All right, and the last bit, sometimes you need to know when to pull back and when to push yourself. We have so many mixed messages going around. You know, I think there's this great movement that's been very pro-rest, and I'm all for it, like highlighting that our hyper-capitalistic, very industrious, work-obsessed American culture is all about pushing ourselves to no limit, and that's not sustainable. And so you've seen so many big advocates come out in favor of rest, and I'm there. Like, I'm all for it. I see how we are relative to where humans have been historically, relative to most of the world, and it does make it clear to me the direction in which we're being excessive. But at the same time, there's a time when you're running, there's a time where you're going something, where you just need to be able to switch into a gear and to know when to say, like, I got this last mile in me, I'm gonna push it, I can do it. Knowing when rest is the thing to prioritize and knowing when endurance is the thing to prioritize, really you're the only one who could figure that out for yourself. And so I say that so that you're aware that there are so many voices out there telling you a mix of things, and that's because different people need to hear different messages at different times. So just be tuned in to what works for you, not just what you're hearing the most often on whatever day it happens to be. All right, those are my takeaways, and to that note, the last 2 points were all rest related. I am scaling back my Creative Changemaker output simply because, yeah, I need the space. I need the space to work on stuff. I want to be more quality over quantity, and I realized that I was releasing these at a clip of 2 a month. I'm going to go down to 1 a month, knowing that if I do so, I could put more thought into writing these out. You know, I'm trying to do this blend of like having these things planned, sharing the ideas I pick up along the way, but wanting to also be more unscripted and spontaneous. And I think just having more prep time to think about the content rather than just feeling like I'm keeping up with the production schedule, that's something I want to do. I really want to deliver ideas that are substantive enough that they could turn into full-blown talks. And yeah, really just have this be the ground floor, the entry level, whatever, the spot that they begin and incubate. So scaling that back, I hear other videos, I've talked a lot about the value of creating space, and in my other videos I've already figured out how to like pull back so I'm releasing stuff less frequently but at a higher clip, and I think it's time to give Creative Changemaker that same treatment. I still love what this channel is all about, or what this section of the channel is all about, whatever. I still love the idea that, yeah, creativity and making a positive impact in the world really go hand in hand, and I want to talk to people who are invested in both, using their gifts for communicating ideas, using their gifts for making people think through art, through storytelling, and using that to create real change. I believe in this stuff. I gave a TED Talk on it. So, not stopping, but I am pacing myself because I want to be in it for the long haul, right? It's about endurance. Okay, with that said, I'll sign off for now and see you all next month.